Kyle, it's good to see you.
Yes, sir. This has been long awaited.
Yeah, for those of you who've been wondering, Kyle and I have been actually discussing this podcast for the last few lacrosse seasons, and it took a global pandemic and 3 years or so to actually make rubber meet the road. So, welcome to episode one of Snap and Towels. Kyle, it's a
Amen.
pleasure to see you.
Yeah, we'll get it flying around and we're going to talk lax. We'll talk conferences, players we're looking to watch, Final Four predictions, tour predictions. We're going to cover it all. We're going to have fun guests that will come on that are playing currently college, playing pro. We'll let you guys think about that. And I'm excited.
Yeah, really excited to tackle 2022 college lacrosse. But also, as we get deeper into the spring, we'll definitely start previewing the PLL, which I couldn't be more excited about. And another kind of new wrinkle I think we have in lacrosse right now, college lacrosse, most in particular the PLL, which I think the PLL has done a phenomenal job with, is including betting lines. And I really want to start unpacking betting lines. I hope we can find, a consistent bookmaker for college lacrosse and start to talk spreads in the sport that we love.
Nice little plug you got there. Any bookmakers out there, let us know. No, but that's a great, we're going to get some overs. We're going to be consistent on the overs in the PLL. And hopefully we can get some late season college games that have some lines too. So I'm excited about
Late
that.
season, early season, mid season. I want to see it all. To be
We're
honest,
there.
I'm pretty excited. Hopefully, we can unlock some value for the two of us and for our listeners in college lacrosse this spring.
Amen. Well, let's get right into it, huh?
Yeah, Kyle. I want to start with, what are you most looking forward to 2022 college lacrosse? Hit me with it.
First and foremost, I'm excited about a full season without any postponement of games or
Preach.
random testing that's coming at the end of seasons. I'm excited for kids to just be out there playing ball again.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Obviously 2020 was totally unfair to everyone involved in all these programs, players, coaches, parents. We got ripped away of a lot of joy as fans. But I really, want to make it clear, couldn't imagine the agony, it must have been for college lacrosse players and athletes across the board in the NCAA to work pretty much their whole lives, particularly those seniors, and just have it taken away completely out of your control. One day everything's fine. You're preparing for your big Saturday matchup. And then, midweek they say they pull the plug and it's over. So just can't wait to see these kids battle again.
Amen. But it did give us those kids finding new schools, finding teams, maybe joining up with friends, old coaches, whatever it was, turned for a lot of grad students. And there will be a lot of grad students in 6 years. All those kids got extra years. 5th year, 6 years, we'll be seeing those kids that we expected to, be 2 years out of college, still playing college ball and making these rosters quite entertaining.
I'm a little envious. I was looking to unlock an extra year eligibility myself.
I think I had 3 of them. They had to get me out of there.
Unfortunately, nobody was looking for a 29-year-old washed-up investment banker to strap it up for him this spring. But no, yeah, I again just can't echo it enough. Just couldn't be more jacked up to see these kids go to battle. Kyle, is there a particular conference that you're really zeroing in on this spring?
Yeah, I mean, it's as predicted. I'm looking at the ACC as I am every year. It's the games you get up on Saturday and you just enjoy turning on. It's the most hype. The ESPN crew's there. They've got fans in the stands in February. They bring big matchups in conference every game. There's no opponent you could kind of take lightly in that conference. So I've got my eyes on them.
Okay. Any team in particular you're most excited about, or any player?
Hard to pick one, honestly, because each team I look at has an exciting kind of element they add to the college game. And, I think we'll spend time talking about every team. I think a big name in that league is Brendan O'Neill. I think he was maybe the biggest. He's like the LeBron James of college lacrosse.
I've been watching his highlights. It feels like since 2015. I don't know.
He was a viral sensation as like an 8th grader on Long Island. And he lived up to it. His high school was his high school seasons were as decorated as advertised.
It's like the second coming of Nicky Galasso out there. I mean, absolutely just absurd
Shout out
numbers.
an old name that was covering inside lacrosse as an 8th grader at Islip, Nicky Galasso. But yeah, but Nicky Galasso's career bounced around, ended up at Cuse. Brendan O'Neill is proving that he is this chosen one that the scouts said, and so respect to him for following through on that. And I think he's accompanied by great players in depth at Duke, but that kid last year, you saw late in some games, they needed some goals. He turned on another motor to get to the goal and to get serious shots off with some serious style. So
yeah, the kid's phenomenal. Can really do some special things out there, and I think it was a real privilege and just a great way to start your career. He got to run alongside Michael Sowers, one of the all-time great dodging attackmen that we've seen in the last decade or so. He got to run with him, learn how to be a pro, right? Learn how to be a college lacrosse player.
Could have easily been a Torin winner in a lot of years in college lacrosse.
Really cool that we got to see those two ball out together for a year, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things where they almost had, like we'll talk about with Duke. I guess we'll just get into unpacking Duke right here because we went into it. But they almost have that too much talent thing where if they're not gelling the right way or they're worried about getting guys touches that are big recruits and big talents and they're not giving it to their guys in the first quarter, Sowers, O'Neill, and giving it to them late in the first, early in the second, late in the second, every possession, I want it going through them. And it kind of, Sowers picked late in the games to get into the flow. O'Neill, they'd be there in the games. He scored a lot on Man Up last year. So it's going to be interesting to see them again battle with that this year. And I think if they dial in the code, if they crack the code of who to play, they'll be looking at a national championship, just like they usually do.
Definitely will have a crack at it, as always. I'm gonna transition quickly to what I'm most excited about for 2022. I by far the most exciting storyline for me is to see how the Ivy League plays out. What was almost arguably the top conference, if not top two conference in the country, 2019 and 2020. They really were as good as anybody, maybe as deep as anybody, aside from the ACC, of course. But really hope we can see them get back to that level and give Division I lacrosse the depth, that we were really enjoying. It felt like from 2015 to 2019, it felt like there was just so much depth across the board, and not just on rosters, but within conferences, right?
Yeah, I felt bad for a lot of those coaches because they had some golden eggs on those rosters that, unfortunately, due to a call by the administration to shut it down, found new homes and have been making a rain on those new rosters and really improving already very talented teams. So to think you brought those guys in, you trained them, you coached them up, they get these names and they're on some accolade lists, and then this hits and your roster's just
scattered across the country.
Talent. Yeah, and then you have leftover talent and new freshmen that have come in, believed in the education they're going to get and, the coaching they receive, but missing those seasons of, possible Torton winners with Sowers putting up, record-breaking numbers before COVID, Teat having a shot at a Torton, players that are big-time professionals, never really seeing their college career explode the way those coaches probably had hoped, getting those programs that are usually in the Final Four back to it.
Yeah, no doubt. And honestly, it was just what was so unfortunate. 2020 was unfortunate for everybody, right? COVID happened. It was brand new. Nobody knew what to do with it. It felt like it was spreading like wildfire. Okay, we got to shut spring sports down. But, last spring in 2021, it just felt like, the Ivy League chancellors or board or whoever made that decision had no scientific basis for the decision. It seemed as though these people had never been in a locker room before. It was just some draconian measure they took. I don't know if it was to save face with, the higher powers at the respective universities. I don't know if it's politics or what, but it just felt really unfair. And particularly for the Penn Quakers, as I'll mention later, couldn't be more excited about them. But yeah, cannot wait to see how the Ivy League unfolds.
Absolutely. They implemented some weird rules last year. Like Penn could only play colleges in the state. So they're going down playing D3, and Dartmouth was playing Tufts. And it was kind of like,
Dartmouth getting absolutely whacked by Tufts. Let's not shout out Tufts. Seriously,
yeah.
Tufts Jumbos, hell of a program. The staff, really showing
I
everybody
mean,
what they're made of, which I think most.
yeah. Not to dwell on COVID too much, but
Right.
it really hurt. If you're going to talk about one league, it hurt the Ivy, and it hurt the
Absolutely
hype
smoked
coming
the
into
Ivy League.
this year. So, I don't have much with them because I haven't seen them play in 2 years, and the rosters are completely different with kids that, I don't even know. Shout out Harvard for at least going a little viral with their Instagram. I feel like every time I look up some lacrosse thing, Harvard's up there with a reel and like some drill they're doing.
Yeah, I'm going to
It's
concur
like,
on that one. I feel like we didn't even discuss this pre-show, but every time I'm on Instagram and it's Inside Lacrosse or something, it's Harvard
yeah,
Lax, right?
they're
These
growing the
kids are
game
running through the
though.
ladders. Yeah,
Yeah,
respect.
no, I think that's big. Their media team. I mean, a lot of schools have great media teams, but Harvard is got the algorithm down on how to reach people because they have like, it couldn't be a less relevant team for me personally. They get big time recruits, but I never see them making any waves and wins. But as far as content being drilled down my throat, they're one. So
Much respect.
I hope
And
hopefully it translates to the field what they're putting on the Instagram.
yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Would love to see, I would love to see a deep Ivy League run by all these squads. But if I could see Harvard put it together for what seems like the first time, maybe ever, that'd be fun because they have a lot of good players as always. Kyle, let's move in. Let's just move into broader conferences. Would love to hear your thoughts. Projected conference winners. We'll tick through them. We'll dive into some of them. Probably some deeper than others. Our listeners can probably predict who we're going to dive deeper into than others. But let's just start with the ACC. What do you got for me?
Yeah, for the ACC, I got a lot of good notes, a lot of talent coming out of the ACC. I think we could go down the list starting with Syracuse. New coaching staff, a lot of names out there on that roster. Arguably,
Players and coaches.
probably more notably coaches,
Yeah.
which is rare because usually the coaches are the old vets that a lot of old generations of lacrosse players know, but the kids that are at the schools don't really know about their decorated careers. And here we just have two Mount Rushmores of lacrosse with Don Petramala and Gary Gate. But yeah, along with Gary has weapons. Talent goes to Syracuse University. I don't think that's ever been their problem. It's how they've been putting pieces in play and having those players gel. They always have guys putting up big numbers. They always figure out a way to make it into the tournament with record. Not always win the ACC, sometimes win the ACC, but I think a big time player for them is Owen Hiltz. He was a freshman last year. He was big on the
Nearly 50-point freshman campaign. So
ridiculous hands. Seems to be open on the rides when there's a turnover. He scraps. The kid makes plays, and he's just a guy you want on the field the whole game. And it took Q's 3 games before he was a cemented starter, putting up ridiculous numbers as a freshman. Taking over for Rafus. I see Dordovic going down on attack. That wouldn't
really,
surprise me at all. I think he played he inverted pretty much every possession they had him out there. I think he's comfortable back there. I think they need a big dodger to kind of hold down the attack. I see a lot of finishers on that roster from last year. I don't see a lot of guys that can win the one-on-one matchup. So between him distributing the Seabowl and Owen Hiltz, I think they have got a great little offense they could play off. Brendan Curry's been there for 8 years.
yeah, Brendan Curry's been around forever. I think he's going to push for an All-American spot this year. He had a really nice year last year. And if this Syracuse team does what I think they're capable of, they make a run in the ACC. They put together a nice record. They're putting up goals, and they make a real push in the NCAA tournament. I think we can see Brendan Curry on, third team All-American team for sure. Kid can play.
Absolutely. As I think he is on the preseason, if not higher. Because I think last year their roles were a little all over the place. And I think if he gets a cemented role on where he's got to be, I think they get a little more success out of him, a little more productivity, as they say.
Yeah,
But
would also love to see kind of limited off the field distractions this year in Central New York.
yeah, with
Right,
new
if they can,
leadership,
yeah.
I think they take care of business.
And I think not that Desco didn't have it buttoned up, but I think exactly a new regime, and kind of a new
Fresh
era.
air,
Yeah,
fresh
for sure,
air.
fresh air.
I think that's going to do him well. I think, it's a school that's only had 4 head coaches. So I think anytime, the guard changes, there's a lot that they take from the previous coach, but there's a lot they're going to do differently. And I'm excited to see them come out. I think they're going to clean up a couple losses. They lost to a hot Army team in the beginning of the season. I think Army peaked the first game. Those kids come into the season in shape. They're not messing around game one, and
No
that's
doubt.
probably their circled game every year.
Damn right, it's their circled game. Yeah.
So, it's no surprise that Army upset them, especially with the season the Qs had last year. But then they pulled it together, beating UVA twice in that year, and then losing kind of a really poor game planned team against Georgetown. It just looked like they didn't game plan. It was a beatable team if you have Cuse's talent. There's no way Cuse should go in and get blown out by Georgetown. Georgetown
Never.
was hot. They have a lot of good players. We'll talk about them. They're a team that's going to make a push into the top 5 for sure this year, if not just hang out there all season, be a staple in the Big East. But Cuse lost them, and Army beat UVA twice. So, they'll have some loss to Notre Dame, Duke. They'll have some work to do in the ACC. I'm not going to go as far as to say they'll be in the top 4 in the ACC, but they'll clean up those out-of-conference games and compete in those ACC games. I think
couldn't agree more. Onward and upward for Cuse this year for sure.
And then once Gary gets his classes in there, it's cliche to say once he gets his guys. I was never really a fan of saying that because, they've got guys there that are, players at Cuse. So I think it's a thing though, when Gary gets his guys on campus and he'll be able to bring in some classes, I think they'll be back at the top of the ACC, no question.
Agreed. Let's move on here. Probably should have kicked off with them as they are the 2-time defending national champions, but let's talk about the Wahoos at UVA.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a complete Connor Schellenberger show. I think he is probably arguably one of the best attackmen we've seen. I'm going to go that far and say it. The kid has a ridiculous shot, ridiculous speed. I think since he stepped on, he was redshirt. He used that COVID year as a redshirt year anyways. So I think he has 2 more years after he's done. But a Mikey Powell type stop and start with a crazy ability to finish around the cage, tight spaces, great hands, finishes fast breaks. I think he has a breakout year, but it's hard to say that because, last year he was a player of the game in the national championship. I think it just goes, he's going to be a torn finalist this year.
Yeah, no, I think barring injury, you can pencil him in, for the Tewaaraton ceremony for sure. Virginia graduated a lot of firepower, but, as we talked about, the returning Schellenberger, other familiar faces. We got Peyton Cormier coming back, Peter Garneau scoring big goals left and right, Jeff Connor. And then let's not forget about their engine, right? Petey Lasala, maybe the best face-off guy in the country, unless you talk about Quadzilla at Lehigh.
Which we will talk about. We got to get that pulled into this frame, Quadzilla.
Yeah.
Picture of that guy pulling weights around.
Can't forget about Quadzilla. Impossible to miss him. But UVA is going to be stacked again. I know they have a lot of transfers coming in as well. Big recruits coming in on offense. Kyle's very familiar with this incoming attackman that he'll talk about later.
Griffin Schultz.
Yeah, kid is just an absolute bowling ball. I
heard a Lars Tiffany interview about that kid during COVID when he was in prep school at Deerfield, bringing a bench into his dorm room and getting reps. I don't know one kid in the Founders League that would do that. So
nope.
Hats off to him. Also a Trumbull, Connecticut youth player, which is probably the biggest kid to ever come out of Trumbull. Honestly,
Respect.
the biggest recruit. So way
Yeah.
to do it for the hometown. I saw he had a ridiculous stat when he played one season at Trumbull High, like 73 points as a freshman, which is just,
He's like, look, I gotta get out of the FCAC. All right.
Yeah, I got to get out of the bottom of the FCAC. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know when the last time Trumbull's won a good game in the FCAC, but yeah, I think that's an easy pickup for Deerfield right down the street. And yeah, clearly a great move on him. I think the number one recruit in his class. And I think him and Peyton Cormier, it's like pick your poison between massive, great-handed lacrosse attackmen. It's just like you can't guard them inside, you can't guard them outside. It's going to be a matchup nightmare. Usually teams don't have a really fast, rangy defenseman that has big weight. So when you're talking about guarding them, if it's Cormier, Schultz, and Schellenberger, and then you've got Matt Moore, who's been a stapled All-American too. So it's honestly, it gets silly down there in Charlottesville with who they're going to give the ball to and who's going to score goals. Probably all of them a lot.
Yeah, and last year, it could be kind of similar to last year, as though in the sense that in the beginning of the year, there was just so much talent, right? They had that transfer from Merrimack. What was his name? Number 42. Kid was a stud, knew how to play the game, but it was like, where do we put this guy? We've got all these other All-Americans. And you had Dox Aiken coming from Villanova football out of nowhere. That was unexpected.
The return.
First like 5 to 7 games, it was almost as though they were just being patient and kind of figuring out their secret sauce. And that's a huge credit to Lars Tiffany. A lot of coaches wouldn't be that patient, right? They wouldn't put up with early season close games against underdogs or maybe even a loss here or there. To really kind of let the kids figure it out on the field and figure it out during the week. After seeing what works, what doesn't work within games, I got nothing but confidence that Lars Tiffany will have them absolutely buzzing by April and May. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was slightly a slow start.
It's a team.
You got to figure out where to put these kids.
It's a team that stays hungry too. I think Lars keeps it in good perspective. There's no guys that think they already won it. I think they're trying to just keep racking them up, and that's the way they play. The guy you mentioned before, Charlie Bertrand.
Yeah.
Lefty. Great. He was a player of the year twice in D2.
Yeah. Excellent player.
Good ball player. Plays for the Redwoods now.
Yeah. One thing I loved about him was
great draft pick too by them.
Yeah, no doubt. One thing I loved about him is that he just it was almost like he brought back his vintage 5-and-5 moves. It's like every time the kid was scoring goals, it's like beautiful question mark, nice inside roll, rocker step.
Some behind the backs too.
Yeah, really just
he was
really
shaky
nice
with
player.
it. Yeah, so they're gonna miss him, but
I think they have plenty of firepower to replace him.
Ridiculous. But
let's move on to the Blue Devils. What do we got?
I mean, speaking of firepower, it's the same kind of thing. You go down their roster, they got transfers. Sean Lully, who is a massive Penn staple for a bunch of years. They've got pretty much 2 players that could start anywhere in the country at each possession. That's how I look at the Blue Devils. They've got a stapled goalie from last year, Mike Adler, who could have been a first or second teamer. I believe he was honorable mention, but if I'm wrong about that, I'm sorry. But again, staples on attack, staples in goal. You're going to win ball games, and you're going to feel comfortable going into them. Some new faces on the defense, losing TJ Giles Harris. I think that's a bit of a loss because he was your number one guy who took out the best player you were going up against every Saturday. And I think it's a luxury to have a guy like that holding a very athletic Dodger to minimal points as he used to do. So filling that role might be more of a defensive curve for them. But, I see them with Jake Nassau at the faceoff. I see them winning a lot of games, putting up a lot of points. I'm not worried about the Blue Devils.
Yeah, as always, they're going to be getting things done down in Durham. It'll be interesting to see a little bit of a similar situation with UVA with so much talent.
Mm.
And I think those kids, those Blue Devils, have the privilege of having another patient coach in Mike Danowski.
Yep.
So, they historically have somewhat slow starts, maybe get upset, maybe only win by 2 or 3 against an Air Force or a High Point, but they'll be buzzing mid to late season. They'll figure out their secret sauce. I have no worries about
I
that.
just want that to I want them to take a turn and for them to get off that stigma. I need them to be burying these teams early with this talent.
Yeah. So, the next team that I really want to talk about is Notre Dame. I'm a huge Kevin Corrigan fan. Guy's been there forever. Seemingly, even though he's been to countless Final Fours, it's almost as though he's like an underrated coach. I think a little bit. I don't think he's talked about quite enough.
I don't
Great.
think.
Go ahead.
Keep going on. Great recruiter. That's a fact.
Great recruiter. Always has a rock solid defense. Seemingly always has a great goaltender.
Sneaky guys with transfers.
Yep.
I think he's known around the league as a little bit of a poacher.
It's easy to poach when you have an elite academic institution behind you. A lot of kids want to go get a graduate degree from Notre Dame. A lot of kids want to go maybe upgrade.
Degree, yeah, exactly.
Maybe upgrade.
You're a stud on a NEC or Patriot League team, and you want to be in the ACC and play on Saturday on ESPN. That's a guy you could definitely call. They're stacked as well. This is why the ACC is so exciting for me and why we're taking so much time to talk about this league. They have Wharton finalists. They've got 14 preseason All-Americans out of the 30 or 42 on the list. They could feel this league could feel the whole team of just All-Americans and some, and a backup. So I think Notre Dame just adds to that.
Yeah, particularly excited to see how Eric Dobson plays this year.
Absolute hammer.
Had a really nice freshman campaign. I think, high teens, low 20s points, some big goals, has an absolute hammer, 6'4", 220, coming out of the midfield. Reminds me of Sam Hanley from Penn a little bit. I mean, really just an excellent player.
That is a heck of a name drop.
Yeah, right. And
this guy knows his history, folks.
Well, Sam Hanley, don't sleep on him, is still a senior. I know we lost 2 years of Ivy League lacrosse, but he's a senior at Penn and will be absolutely making it rain this year for the Penn Quakers. But I think Eric Dobson's going to make a Sergio Perkovic-like freshman to sophomore jump. And it's always talked about, particularly among midfielders in college lacrosse, is that sophomore leap. And I think Eric Dobson's going to be good for 45 points this year. He's going to be an All-American. Notre Dame's going to be in this thing, and he's going to be all over TV on Saturdays.
Amen. I think it's going to be bigger than that Perkovic transition. I think he came on, from Florida, some
Perkovic
things,
from Michigan, both non-hotbed guys.
Some things to iron out in terms of gameplay when it's heat of the moment. Some turnovers he had.
Dobson's a touch raw. He's a little
raw. And I think this next year it's going to be bigger because I think he's a little more in control of his game. He's not just a shoot from deep. He can stick it on the run. He bears in. He can go through the middle. He really does it all. One thing I like to see him do, because now he's got eyes, everyone knows about him, is his passing. Take a little bit of pressure off Pat Cav. I think it could be a big part of his game. We'll see. I don't know. From what I saw a lot of hook in the stick, a lot of fast snapshots. I don't think it serves you well to play like that in terms of a passer. Nope. But if he knows he's an outside stretch shooter, do it. It's just, are those numbers going to be, 25, 30 goals and 4 assists, or 30 goals, 18 assists, 19 assists? So We'll see about that leap. Also, a hammer on the man up. We'll see if he finds guys on the back door, because people are going to be pressing out for him.
Yep, no doubt. How about those Kavanaugh brothers?
I mean, I think we touched on it before. Pat Cav's going to be a staple in the Twarton for the next 2 years. He's a highlight reel. He's creative. He's everything you want in a college lacrosse all-star attackman to grow the game. I think he brings a lot of eyes. He's always on Sports Center throwing
No
it over
doubt.
his head. I
Yep.
think it's good for the game. I think another horse they have that is, Liam Edelman. I
Yep.
think he's a stout tender. He really opened my eyes as a freshman last year. USA team kid, U19 guy. I don't know. I just think he can save the ball at a high rate clip. And with Pat Cav on one end, Edelman on another, I think you go into games comfortable.
Yeah, and one thing, talking about Edelman or Edelman, Notre Dame just has a history of top-notch tenders.
Yeah.
I mean, the Kemps, Rogers, you name it. These kids. For some reason, as I'm talking about Corgan, I think slightly underrated. Just brings in great goalkeepers to really anchor his kind of typical tough as nails defense. So yeah, I mean, Notre Dame could be as good as anybody for sure.
With the leadership, 11 grad students. It was the craziest thing I'd ever seen on a depth chart.
That is alarming.
It's
alarming.
And I think I don't know who has more, Rutgers or Notre Dame.
It's kind of funny. It's like, why does Rutgers have so many? But yeah, no,
I think they opened the door. Anyone can get into Rutgers. So
no, Rutgers, great school.
I think, yeah. I think, they're and they've the big state school, they can roster that many
for
kids,
sure.
So why not? And I think something must have happened in their sophomore and junior classes, but I saw a lot of freshmen and a lot of seniors. They counted the grad students as seniors.
Yep.
So
we're talking Rutgers right now, by the way, in case anybody's lost track.
Just hopped into that, but
yeah. Before we hop into the Big Ten,
back to Notre Dame with their stout grad student list they've pulled together. Jacoboys, Lipka, been there before, played in big games, have big
names
goals.
Yep.
They're going to be there with Dobson, the attack with Kavanaugh, adding Chris Kavanaugh. Maybe, I don't know. I haven't got any word from South Bend yet, but I think we'll have to look into that.
I think we can count on Chris Kavanaugh getting some runs out of the box. I mean, the kid's a little, he's a water bug out there, kind of a party starter. Like I think we'll see him out there. I'm not sure we're going to see 25, 30 points from him as a freshman, but he'll be out there mixing it up.
That'd be nice.
He'll be mixing it up, getting the party started out of the box.
Him and Griffin Westland's a kid you got to talk about too, because he was in every big game he seemed to have 4. All eyes go to Kavanaugh, and here's the lefty on the back pipe who can just sting corners the whole game. So shout out to that kid too. You got to give a shout out to your boy Mike Hawkins.
Yeah, don't think I was going to get through this Notre Dame piece without talking about Mike Hawkins. You want to talk about a little water bug party starter? Mike Hawkins can do some really special things. He's got a beautiful stick on him. Another high school highlight tape that caught the eyes of many out of Glastonbury, Connecticut. Upstate Connecticut legend. Slick lefty, can do a lot of different things off the dodge, off ball, can finish, great vision. I will say it's going to be a tough lineup to crack. But again, just as, with the little Kavanaugh brother, I'd be shocked if we didn't see them utilize Mike Hawkins a little bit coming out of the box.
Yeah. No,
just bolstering their depth.
Why not? You got it. You got them, use them.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. Last but not least, Tar Heels.
It's easy to talk about Craig and Cage, Chris Gray at attack, also Twarton finalist, shout out. The ACC is just ridiculous, man. That's why we're taking so much time.
Yeah, it's absurd. I think we spent 30 minutes on these kids. I mean, it's like
every game's going to be insane. Yeah. You don't want to miss an ACC game this year. Honestly, there's with the coaching lines with Cuse and the talent with around the rest of the league, it's going to be a movie, as they say. But I'll go into UNC. And I want to talk about the rope. I want to talk about their Fogo, who's scrappy, who plays hard all game. He's a ground ball machine. He's athletic. He'll get up and down. Zach Tucci, I think he was tremendous last year. He kept them in a lot of games, a lot of late in a lot of games, giving them fast breaks. But I want to talk about also his right-hand man, Matt Wright, Canadian out of the Hill School. I think he's got arguably him and Ryan McNulty are the 2 best LSMs in the country. I'll go out say that right now. pull that back up later in the season. The
All right, word.
guy doesn't stop. I saw him play last year, and I had to look up at what he had going on, because whatever he's eating, other guys should get on. This guy's wreaks havoc in the middle of the field. If you're a
Yeah,
second,
we'll have to get him on the show and say, what are you eating for breakfast?
we might have to, honestly. We gotta, if you're a second line midi grabbing the ball at midfield, trying to run it down, there's just drop it and get back on defense if he's on your tail, because he does not stop. And I hope you got a left hand to send it down the alley if you get it in. But with him, and then their first team preseason All-American, Connor Marr, short stick D midi, holding it down. He's experienced. He's been in big games. The thing about these guys is they all take every shift. They're in incredible shape. They don't get run by. They're disciplined. So it's something that UNC's kind of lacked in the last couple of years that is really reminiscent to their national championship team. So kudos to them.
Totally agree. And I think, one thing that's really overlooked, when we talk about these rope units, one thing that's really overlooked, like everybody knows that the ACC is absolutely loaded with stud attackmen, stud defensemen, great goalkeepers, even some headliner Fogos. But, when I was in college, a long time ago, when we played UNC in the tournament, they had huge names, All-Americans everywhere. What I was most blown away with by far was ACC wing play. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was a different level. We had nice players that could match up with some of their big names, but their wing play was incredible, because just the athletes that they could put out there. It was like all these kids were top 10 recruits, but maybe weren't quite good enough to be on the first or second line midfield. It's like, all right, we're going to make you a defensive midfielder. You're going to go get GBs for us on the wings, and you're going to go get, our Sankeys, our Bitters, 11 extra possessions in a game.
Absolutely. Ground balls don't come cheap in that league.
Yeah, if you want to win in the ACC, you need elite wings, period. Full stop.
Let's get into conference championships.
Yeah, Kyle, who do you got winning this? Who do you got winning this conference, this heavyweight?
I'm going with the favorites, Virginia. And they might not even be the favorites in the league after coming back
They're probably not.
I don't think they are. I think they got a new goaltender, Nunes. That could be a little question mark. I just like it's hard to tell, honestly, because I think Duke and North Carolina split it last year. They were both 4-3. They both had 1 win, 1 loss on each other. I don't think the ACC wanted to do a tournament. I think the tournament will be back. We'll have to come back and fact check that. But if it's a tournament with Notre Dame, cool. With Duke, UNC, Notre Dame, and Virginia, get your popcorn. I don't know what else to say. I'd take all 4 of those teams winning.
And then you throw in a resurgent Q's team.
Resurgent Q's team giving some teams some losses, maybe if they take them lightly. So
yeah, no doubt.
It's gonna be tough. But also, with an experienced tender, I do want to go with Duke. It just hurts my soul,
Got it. All right.
Let me hear what you got.
I'm going with the Fighting Irish in South Bend.
A breakthrough year.
Yeah, no, I think they can do it. I think they're just absolutely loaded on offense. And I'm telling you, I think Eric Dobson's going to be a real problem for everybody. As great as the ACC is, since the formation of the Big Ten, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, you got to give that conference a hell of a lot of credit. And it starts at the top with the Maryland Terps.
Absolutely, the Terps. They're always in championship weekend. There's no question about that.
Tillman is an absolute stud, and he brings in studs, and
they get transfers that are studs. So
shout out Griffin Brown, another Red Raider.
Yeah. He had a great little season.
Nice little year for them last year.
No doubt. But this year, you're going to talk about Jonathan Donville, and I think he's an upgrade from Griffin Brown. I think he's a bona fide midfielder that runs an amazing box game on the field. Also, unfortunately for the Cornell Big Red,
another huge loss for the Ivy League.
Could have had 2 huge years for them, tainted. But regardless, Maryland's going to be there in the Big Ten championship. I think we just put that a staple. It's who wants to match them. Penn State always has amazing recruiting classes. A lot of Pennsylvania kids rolling up to that school. I think their offense just picks up where it left off with Mac O'Keefe.
Yeah, I mean, Penn State had a little bit of a disappointing year last year. I think they were 4-7 or so. I actually think they're going to take a step back, maybe not from 4-7, but I think a step back from their pre-COVID level. I think, look, you lose two transformational players like Grant Ament and Mac O'Keefe. I'm going to give you a year, right? I'm going to give you a year, 2 years to kind of gather yourself again. Tamburoni is one of the best coaches in the country. Just brought in defensive coordinator Mike Murphy, which I think is a nice hire. I think Penn State is going to need a year or two to get back to that level, if ever. Honestly, I mean those two are.
And on the other end, I think that's a great call. I think that's a great prediction. We'll see, because I think that he's a good coach. So. He's a
great coach.
It's hard to say because they don't have some massive goal, like record-breaking goal scorers on the squad, that they're not going to mix it up. But I think on the other trend going up is your hometown team.
Yeah, the Buckeyes had a disappointing year last year. I think they were 4-7 as well. One of my breakout players for the year is the number 7 overall recruit in the country. This stud defenseman they brought in from North Carolina, Bobby Van Buren. Kid can absolutely ball. He's going to be a menace on the defensive end. Nobody's going to want anything to do with him. And what really put it over the top for me was looking at the Inside Lacrosse recruiting rankings, seeing everybody having their high schools right next to them. You got your Deerfields, you got your St. Anthony's, you got your Chaminade's,
Boys
Avons.
Latin.
Yeah, of course.
Let's
Shout MIA, IAC, Founders League, you name it, whatever. This kid, homeschooled.
Just lifting weights and hitting the wall all day.
Yeah.
Class for 2 hours, lax for 6.
Exactly. I think this kid's just absolutely primed and ready.
We'll have to get him on here to talk about that.
I know.
How do you get recruited out of the crib?
We got to track this guy down. I mean, Nick Myers, I think, just found himself a stud out of North Carolina. And Nick Myers does a really good job of, he's in a part of the country which obviously isn't a historical hotbed. Columbus, Ohio has some good lacks, no doubt. He gets hotbed kids, but he also finds himself these diamonds in the rough. I don't want to call this kid a diamond in the rough. He's the 7th recruit in the country, but he's out of North Carolina. He's homeschooled. This kid Van Buren, I think, is going to be a stud for them. The loss of Trey LeClaire, one of the best players in program history.
Yeah, massive loss.
But I think they can reload. Ohio State at this point. They've got some
attackmen back there.
Yeah, Ohio State has cemented itself as a top 18, 17 program, I think. They've got, obviously, the facilities to match anybody in the country. Nick Myers has put together a hell of a resume. He's got no problem getting kids. So
the Big Ten's not beautiful, but it's going to be battling. Every week's going to be interesting in that league, with Rutgers being just a roster junkie team with 1 million grad students. And then you have Penn State on a rebranding year.
Penn State on a cloudy Saturday in Happy Valley is not, a picnic.
It's not a gimme. Yeah. Nope. So that's what I'm saying. You've got Ohio State with this massive recruit who's going to hopefully anchor their defense, and some veterans that attack, sprinkled in with some good athletes. Nick Myers always figures out how to put a good product out there and take Maryland's and in the Big Ten tournament down to, 1-goal games. And they're on the cusp a lot of years. So I think there's no easy game in that conference. Hopkins hit their stride too late last year.
Look, that's a program I want to spend a couple of minutes on. I think Kyle, being the greyhound that he is, doesn't want to give them the credit or the airtime that they might deserve. But look, you got Joey Epstein coming back. The Blue Jays are going to be looking for a turnaround year. 5 of their losses last year, they were 4-9. Okay, 5 of their losses were by 3 goals or less.
Second year with the new coaching, they hit a serious stride in the Big Ten tournament last year at Penn State, making highlight reels left and right. So, I see them being in the Big Ten tournament for no doubt. If I'm going to call it, it's going to be Ohio State, Rutgers, Maryland, and Johns Hopkins.
Yeah, I mean, I think Hopkins is primed to have kind of a resurging year, and I'm pulling up their schedule right now. All right, we got a 12-10 loss against Maryland. Okay, that's a close game. Very possible they were up by 1 and Maryland, or down by 1, and Maryland dumped in an open netter at the end of the game. A 1-goal loss to Maryland in April.
Also, shout out to them this year, looking at their schedule this year, because that's what we're about looking forward.
Yep, sure.
Having a massive schedule adjustment with Towson locally always play.
Georgetown.
Jacksonville to warm up. They got Georgetown, which is new.
That's a February matchup to watch, no doubt.
Loyola Hawkins is a classic. Turn on your TV and get your popcorn. You've got
at UNC.
Then you go 3 ACC games before you hop, and then a tough Navy team always before you hop into Big Ten play. That's arguably one of the best schedules you'll see.
That's a Hopkins schedule. Historically, Hopkins was an independent, right? They weren't in a conference.
Yeah,
and the reason why they did that was so they could have a schedule like this. So much respect.
Kudos.
Putting this together. Yeah.
That's probably one of the better schedules I've seen. But back to tournament. Who do you got winning it?
I mean, look, I'm going to go chalk here. Maryland's going to win this conference. And I have no reason to believe they're not.
I like that. I'm going to go with the dark horse. The Scarlet Knights on the dark horse. Rutgers
veterans
breaking the door down with guys coming from all over the country.
I would love to see that.
The East Weatherford.
I would love to see that. Rutgers has had a lot of recent success, and I think they've quietly become like one of the more consistent programs in the country. I think they got robbed like 3 years in a row. Robbed.
Yeah.
And I think it was honestly 3. It might have been 2, but I think it was 3 years in a row.
3 years in a row. They got a serious ballot.
Robbed.
Yeah.
Robbed.
It's tough.
And look, I don't want to denigrate the other conferences.
The committee has a tough job.
It's great to see these kids get AQs.
Records. Yeah.
Yeah. It's automatic qualifiers.
If you put Rutgers in there versus one of those AQs from the neck, you see a close game with Bobby Moe or Bryant, Virginia, Bobby Moe, Maryland, whatever it is, to a serious Rutgers team coming off a hot Big Ten tournament to play a number 1 seed. That's a 1 seed you don't really want.
One of those 3 years, they're probably pulling off an upset. That's going to change the complexion of an NCAA tournament.
Absolutely.
So really unfortunate, but kudos to Rutgers for kind of.
I'm picking Rutgers. Yeah, no,
I think Rutgers is my 2. So respect.
Let's hit
Big East.
Yeah.
Let's hit Big East.
It's time.
I'm just gonna roll off of my conference winner here, Georgetown.
I love that. They're hot. Easily. I think they blow.
Oh, you think easily?
Yeah.
You think Denver's not close?
I think Denver wins the other games. I don't see them beating Georgetown. I thought they were the best team last year handily, and they got better. And they got a transfer that is arguably one of the better players in the country, with Will Bowen, who's just an absolute monster.
Where's he coming from?
North Carolina.
Oh, UNC, right.
Massive name. He's probably one of the better defensemen I've seen in the last decade. He's a savage, and he's a gift. He's a
COVID gift.
No, he graduated early. He graduated from Carolina in like 2 years or something. We'll get some UNC head on that. We'll talk about it. And then wanted to do his grad at a degree at Georgetown.
Yeah, I mean another place where it's like, hey
books.
Man, you can come to Georgetown.
He likes the books. Yeah, no, it looks great. They've got some program he really wanted to dive into. So kudos to him for being on his academia from the jump and knowing what he wanted to do. But it was kind of one of those things, Bresci, it was like, the day's coming. You're going to lose this absolute stud of a number 1 defenseman who takes any player out of the game as well as stalks people in transition on the rides.
Yeah, and not to downplay the loss of Bowen, but Bresci's thinking, all right, I got 10 guys that look just like you. So good luck.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I haven't seen a guy like this in a decade. You're
Okay,
telling me
sure.
he's got 8 of them on the bench. He's looking at the bench like, who's gonna try to come up and do what this guy's doing? Like, he better be in film looking at this dude, because that guy, you see him on the rides. I bet Georgetown does it too. He'll leave his attackman. They'll pull the goalie. Their goalie was like a first teamer last year. He's probably loving the addition of Will Bowen, and he'll go up and he'll stalk a midfielder coming out of the box to read turnovers. It's just
Yeah,
like,
and Warren at Georgetown, defenseman himself, tough as
him.
nails guy. He's going to
Loves
be.
him.
He's
He owes
got.
Bresci one.
Yeah, no doubt.
He does. And I mean, so their offense, they lose Caraway. They've got guys on that offense that
Losing
can
Nicky
score the
Pekovic
pebble.
too, another successful Colgate Raider doing a graduate year because of
Successful
COVID.
transfer, I'd say.
Yeah, successful transfer. Yep. Successful transfer to Georgetown last year. Had a really nice year. Had a nice career at Colgate, but I think he put up like 45 points at Georgetown last year as a graduate senior on a really good Georgetown team. So
Coaching.
It's
coaching.
Yeah, at Georgetown.
Yeah, I mean, you take a player and it's the same.
Oh, it's coaching.
Player.
Yeah. Got it. Yep.
It's the offense. It's playing around
It's
better
the players around him, man.
You play, that's true, but it's a little bit of both. I'll say that. I'm not gonna say it's fully the players. I think there were some good kids around Colgate, but you don't have a Jake Caraway who was a Twerton finalist, I think.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, I mean,
he drawed a lot of eyes.
He had elite players around him. He had a program with
player.
Serious momentum.
Yeah.
Good coach, the whole thing. So yeah, good for Nicky Pekovic.
Money.
That's a big loss for Georgetown out of nowhere. But no, I think Georgetown's going to win the Big East.
They've got a hammer coming out of the midfield. Graham Bundy, who's a USA kid, I think. He can just stretch it. He had a ton of points. They get 50 points last year, somewhere around there, as a sophomore. He's going to be arguably a first or second teamer this year, I think.
So Georgetown's for real. And what's interesting is, okay, I'm on them to win the Big East. I think you are too. You said by far.
TJ Haley, freshman, had 54 points at attack, second leading points.
Georgetown's white hot. Can they make the Final Four? First time since 1999. Shout out Upper Arlington Golden Bear Steve Dussault leading Georgetown to the Final Four in 1999 as a freshman. But can they make a push for the Final Four? I mean, that's that next level that Georgetown really hasn't scratched.
This is their year if they're going to do it.
I mean, I would have thought last year was the year with Caraway, but
I think they lacked a little bit on the close defense.
Insert Bowen.
And they have a stud back there. I don't even know his name, but they've got a guy, and now they've got the guy. So, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think later in the show we're actually going to unveil our Final Four picks. So
the goalie's still there too. Just to touch on that, I just looked that up.
Love it. They're loaded. They're experienced. Georgetown, the Hoyas.
And they got a UNC transfer that made noise last year, Alex Trippy.
We got to talk Denver. I mean,
look, they're there every year.
They lost a lot of talent. All right, they lost Danny Logan, who
they had a bunch of Yale kids come over last year that made it rain.
Yep. I mean, losing Danny Logan, Jackson Morrill, Ethan Walker, T.D. Erlin. I mean, those are serious losses. I think Danny Logan might be the hardest to replace. I don't know if he might be the hardest to replace out of that group.
Yeah, he's a bona fide. Yeah, he was
first team All Pro defensive midfielder.
He's the guy.
So I think he was a 3-time captain at Denver.
They got JJ Stiltrop. That's an attackman that was a sophomore that had a couple of goals here and there. I think he was a staple. And Jack Hanna.
Yep.
I think he's
a stud.
He's their guy. I hope they get some attackmen around him. They got Alex Simmons, who had 55 points, so he's a stud. So they got him and Hanna. Coulter, we'll see who comes back. I don't know who's taking their extra years yet. It's kind of a weird kind of thing, Good
news for Denver, Big East week. So they've got some time to figure it out.
They'll be in the Big East championship.
Exactly. They'll be in the Big East tournament, probably beat the number 2 seed in the Big East tournament. They'll beat a Marquette or, somebody else. And they'll face off with Georgetown for a second time. Look, you got Bill Tierney playing a team for a second time. It's dicey. I'm going to go ahead and kick this off. I think Lehigh's going to win the conference. And I think that's going to be blasphemous to Kyle, but I think Lehigh's going to win this conference. They seemingly return everyone aside from their goalie and LSM. Lehigh's always tough, always well coached. I think you can probably bank on Loyola having a slightly better roster top to bottom, but Lehigh this year is particularly experienced at attack. They returned 5 attackmen who had 20 plus points last year. So that means these kids are rolling it out of the box, scoring points on man up. Like, I think their offense is going to be very high powered and just kind of disciplined as always. And Lehigh's always got a tough D. And I think Lehigh wins the conference crown this year. The thing about Lehigh, about playing at Lehigh is, which I think is just a real disservice to the lacrosse program, is that and it's not like Loyola. Like, I know Ridley is off campus, but like Lehigh's is far off campus and it's not in the middle of Baltimore. So like Loyola's stadium being slightly off campus, like I don't think is a huge deal. Like, you're in the middle of Baltimore, you're going to get great crowds. It's really tough for Lehigh students to get to games at Lehigh.
I don't even know anything about the landscape.
My sister went there. I played there 3 times. It's not a good setup. They have pretty nice facilities, but they're kind of far off site.
Yeah.
And I don't think many Bethlehem locals. I don't think many Bethlehem locals are showing up to the Lehigh lacrosse games.
Yeah, no, I think the Patriot League is a solid league this year. I think a lot of teams have
always solid.
Have good players coming back. There's good coaching scattered throughout the league. The league has teams that shake it up. Army and Navy, they always get good players. They always bring it on game day, so it's tough to call a winner right now. I'm calling the hometown team, the Hounds. I think Loyola is going to take it. They return everybody. There's really no loss in their roster. They sparked last year at the end of the season. A lot of momentum, a lot of close games. Ended up losing to Duke in overtime in a heartbreaker with some banged up players that have came back healthy. So I think the Hounds by 1 billion.
By 1 billion.
I think by 1 billion.
I think the Big East and the Patriot League are just locked up already.
I'm locking them up.
Look, don't get me wrong. I think Loyola probably has a better roster top to bottom. I don't think the gap in 2022 is as big as it historically is. And I think Lehigh is primed to steal a conference championship this year. I really do.
I think it's going to be the rematch that never happened. I think that's what it's going to be.
We can talk about that in a second, but
the conspiracy I have as a conspiracist.
Well, we can talk about that in 1 second, but you have to forgive me when I went to my Lehigh diatribe. I did not bring up maybe the most important player in the country in Quadzilla.
Oh God, we touched on him earlier.
I completely forgot about Quadzilla. Lehigh's face-off guy.
First team All-American, yeah. Mike Cecilberger.
Mike Cecilberger.
99. Number 99. He's as big as his number.
Yeah.
He's a unit.
And we touched on the rope units in the ACC. We can both tell you from firsthand experience, the rope units in the Patriot League are not what they are in the ACC. Not to say there aren't great, scrappy players on the rope units in the ACC or in the Patriot League. Kyle's about to pop in and tell me that the Loyola rope unit is as good as anybody.
I'll tell you about it.
But top to bottom in the Pat League, the rope units are not what they are in the ACC. So if you have a kid like Quadzilla, Cecilberger, it's a massive difference maker, and he will get those experienced attackmen at Loyola, as I said earlier, 10, 12 extra possessions a game, just because he is who he is.
Loyola.
Yeah,
he's gonna limit the Hounds' possession, but you can't sleep on Savio. He's a monster. He's an honorable all-mention.
Legacy as well.
He's been there. Yeah, Savio name's been there for a minute, but Bailey's been there for a long time. Started for 4 years. It's his 5th year. He's an honorable mention All-American. got Ryan McNulty, who's a horse. He's going to take every run at them for them at LSM. He's a first-team All-American potential or candidate. I think he was predicted or preseason, but and then Peyton Razanka, who's a grinder. And I think if he could clean up some errors in the pound-D game and kind of some undisciplined decisions, he'll be up in the second, third team All-American mention for sure. So I think the Hounds have a rope, an experienced rope, you could say. They've got depth. They've got offense coming back. They've got their whole defense coming back. It's the same team. It's just if the goaltender can stay hot and if they don't wait till the end of the season to kind of spark the fire on offense. I think without Pat, there's a little bit of a identity thing going on early on
Pat Spencer, that is, for those listeners who aren't close friends with Pat.
The GOAT. So once they figured that out, they were in full swing and taking care of business. Took them a couple games. But they're well coached on both sides of the ball. And they're no joke in the back end of the season, winning 7 of their 8 last end of the season games with that Lehigh one getting cancer.
Don't sleep on Charles Toomey.
No, Charlie. No, never sleep.
Don't sleep on
Chuck.
him. Yeah, look for Loyola and Lehigh to be, I think, battling it out at the top, but we cannot forget about Army and Navy.
Mm-hmm.
Both are going to be solid as usual. Could potentially upset one of those two teams, but I think both, it's safe to say, will kind of win the games they should, and you can probably ink one of them, if not both of them, to pull off an upset or two, like Army at Cuse last year. But like both always have big time schedules. So they both have kind of plenty of opportunity, like be on national TV and against a heavyweight. And I think just like simply want it more on any given Saturday.
Yeah.
I think Army and Navy will be solid as always and make a little bit of noise in the Pat League as well.
Yeah. Well, Navy's got the stud attackman from Shoreham-Wading River, Xavier Arlen, who's coming over as from quarterback. So we'll see.
High school quarterback?
Navy quarterback.
No way.
Yeah. On the football roster, moving over to lacrosse this year. It says he's a sophomore, but they've got some schedule. I mean, some prep school years they added. I don't really know what sophomore at the Naval Academy means. And then on the flip side, on attack at Army, they got Brendan Nickturn coming back.
Yeah, Nickturn's a stud.
He's going to be an All-American, of course. He puts up points out the wazoo. It's going to be, if he gets any help, they lost a tough game to the Hounds in the Patriot League tournament last year in the semifinals, where Cam Wires just met Nick Turn's big heavyweight battle. They were going back and forth. So look out for that to be a big matchup in the Patriot League too when the Hounds roll into upstate New York.
The Ivy League, I'm taking Penn. Yeah, I mean, I think Penn's coming back with a vengeance this year. They've gotten robbed the last couple of years. 2019, I think they got robbed by their tournament draw. There was really no reason we needed to see Yale and Penn play for a third time before the Final Four. I thought that was a total misplacement by the selection committee. But I think Penn's going to win the Ivy League.
I like that. I'm going to go with Jerry Byrne and the Harvard. I don't even know Harvard's mascot. Crimson. Harvard Crimson. I'm going to go with Byrne and the Harvard Crimson. Even though we've been bagging them all day, they haven't played a game since 2020. A lot of their players are back. They were a young team then. They'll be an old team now. They've got good recruits coming in. I think Harvard's going to make a push. Unfortunately, I really don't like how their schedule, particularly at home, is terrible. On the road, it's decent. Play a couple Big Ten teams, but really other than that, no good games. I think they're like traveling the whole season. They've got 5 road games, 7 away games. So, they'll be a battle-tested Crimson. I hope they turn around down there and they're successful as they are on social media.
Yeah, personally, I don't see Harvard finishing in the top three in the Ivy League this year. You got Penn, who I think is going to be disgusting.
Mm,
Yale will be back. Andy Shea is going to have that team ready to roll. I think Matt Brandow and Thomas Bragg are huge returners for
massive.
Yale.
Yeah, I might need to
Um,
switch that up. I got all excited on Harvard.
yeah, I mean, look,
No, I know, and I need to give my boy Leo Johnson from Yale some credit because I think that kid's legit and he's going to be a first teamer one day. It's his freshman year. We'll see how he gets implemented, whether he's starting at X or coming out of the box. He's going to
yeah,
be on the field. He makes
yeah,
plays.
yeah. You've been talking about him for a couple of years. I'm excited to see him ball out this year in college. But I mean, back to Penn also. Sam Hanley, Dylan Greger,
Yeah,
Dylan Gerger. I mean, just absolute stalwarts for the Penn Quakers.
now
Penn
I
is going to
feel
be
like a asshole
angry.
saying Harvard because I've been bashing them. I come out of nowhere saying they're going to win the conference when I don't think that.
Penn is going to
I
be
think it's going
angry
to
this
be
year.
Penn and Yale for that championship. I wonder
And
where they're
guys,
having it. They usually have it somewhere kind of cool and nifty.
yeah, I'm not sure where they're holding it
I
this
think the
year
last time I honestly heard about it was at
at Columbia.
Columbia.
Yeah.
Yeah, sweet. That was a
Obviously, Columbia
great.
doesn't have a lax team, but having it in New York City with all the Ivy League alums,
So
pretty
cool.
pretty cool. And look, another reason why I don't think Harvard's going to finish in the top three. Let's not forget about Brown. Okay.
Or Princeton.
Yeah. I don't know much about Princeton post Michael Sowers, to be totally honest, but let's not forget about Brown. Aside from their one game they played last year against BU, which they made quick work of BU, the last
Yeah.
time these guys played was in 2020. They upset Virginia.
No, Mike Daly's going to have a team ready to go. That
Yeah.
guy's no joke. You just wonder who's still around. It's a weird thing. We could dive into it a little more on next episode when we talk about, how teams roll out their first game. But
Definitely, we'll talk about them more. I think
yeah,
it's safe to say Yale and Penn are the headliners, but I think I might be most interested just to see where Brown is after a year and a half of hibernation. All right, well that'll do it for episode 1 of Snapping Towels. Kyle, enjoy LA.
Cameron, I'll talk to you soon.